Hi guy, welcome back TV spoilers. Victor's fury could drive Phyllis to the edge. And this time he doesn't just want to beat her and Kurth wants to erase her. He cuts off every source of oxygen she's ever used to survive, not with a single public declaration, but with a quiet, methodical campaign that turns Genoa City into a locked room. Victor treats Phyllis's AI scheme as more than a betrayal. He frames it as an unforgivable insult to the Newman name. The kind of threat that must be punished so thoroughly that no one else ever dares to try it again. The law can take months, even years, but power moves faster than paperwork. And Victor chooses the kind of power that doesn't leave fingerprints. In his mind, this isn't merely revenge, it's a warning shot aimed at the entire city. He wants every boardroom, every cocktail party, every aspiring player with a grudge to understand the same lesson. You can challenge Newman Enterprises, but you will not survive the consequences. Phyllis feels the collapse before she can even name it. It begins with small disruptions that look like ordinary business friction meetings. Rescheduled indefinitely, emails answered with chilly one-liners. Calls that go straight to voicemail. Then the real pattern emerges. Contracts that were once certain suddenly become under review. Investors who once leaned forward with excitement start leaning back with polite caution. Projects that were supposed to launch in Genoa City stall in place like engines that have lost fuel. And every time Phyllis tries to restart them, she hits the same invisible wall. No one says Victor's name out loud, but his presence is everywhere, hanging in the pauses and the forced smiles. People don't even need to admit they're scared of him. Their behavior says it for them. The city doesn't argue with Victor Newman and obeys him. Victor's reach extends beyond business. Because he understands the truth about Genoa City, reputation is currency, and social access is leverage. Invitations to elite events stop arriving. Seating charts shift. Doors that used to open for Phyllis now close with soft, final clicks. In rooms where she once commanded attention simply by walking in, conversations suddenly go quiet. Then restart without her, as if she's become a hazard no one wants to acknowledge. The rejection isn't loud. It's surgical. It's distance. It's people turning their shoulders just slightly so she's no longer part of the circle. Phyllis has survived public scandal before because scandal can be spun, weaponized, even monetized. But Victor is smarter than that. He doesn't give her a stage. He gives her silence, and silence is the one thing Phyllis can't dominate. The worst part is that she can't fight what she can't prove. She tries to find new partners, new funding, new pathways around the blockade. But every route leads back to the same dead end. The moment someone realizes working with her might place them in Victor's crosshairs, their enthusiasm dies. They don't need to be threatened directly. A suggestion is enough. A reminder is enough. A single hint that the Newman Empire can make life uncomfortable is enough to turn maybe into no. Phyllis begins to understand that Victor isn't simply blocking one deal, or to deal she's collapsing her entire network. He's severing the roots beneath her feet so that even if she keeps standing, she's standing on air. As the walls close in, Phyllis's anger and fear start feeding each other. She tells herself she can outthink him, outlast him, find the crack in the armor. Because that's who she has always been, Simeon who refuses to be cornered. Yet each day proves how vulnerable she truly is when the city decides she's too expensive to support. She's not just losing money or momentum. She's losing the sense of identity that comes from being relevant. Phyllis has always lived by impact, by the certainty that people react to her, that she can tilt the room, that she can force the story to revolve around her choices. Victor robs her of that. He turns her into an example, a cautionary tale, a name people avoid like a contagious risk. And the more she tries to push back, the more she looks like someone spiraling, which is exactly what Victor wants the world to believe. Then the pressure seeps into the one place she can't afford for it to reach, Daniel. Even if he doesn't say everything out loud, his disappointment becomes a constant presence. A silent question that cuts deeper than any business loss. Daniel begins to look at his mother's war with Victor not as strategy, not as survival, but as self-destruct disguised as pride. He can't watch her keep diving into a fight she cannot win without wondering what she's sacrificing, what she's dragging down with her. Phyllis senses the shift in him and it terrifies her, because she's always assumed her bond with Daniel would remain untouched by whatever chaos she created. Now she feels it fraying under the weight of her obsession. And that fear triggers the darkest contradiction inside her. She cannot bear to be seen as weak, but she also cannot bear to lose her son's respect. She's trapped between two nightmares, wicking away and admitting defeat. or pushing forward and watching Daniel step back from her. Phyllis tries to convince herself that Victor is the monster here, that he's abusing influence to destroy a rival, that he's proving the worst stereotypes about power and vengeance. And she's not wrong. But the truth that haunts her in the quiet is that Victor has chosen the perfect weapon. He isn't simply punishing her, he's isolating her, turning her into a problem that no one wants to touch. He's teaching Genoa City how to treat her. That's what makes this so suffocating. The city doesn't need to be ordered. It learns the lesson on its own. People who once supported Phyllis start drifting away not because they suddenly hate her, but because they're terrified of what it will cost them to stand beside her. The Newmans don't have to yell to be obeyed. They only have to exist. And that's when Phyllis realizes how close she is to the edge. Desperation isn't only about finances or stalled projects, it's about waking up and recognizing you have become alone in a city that used to fear you, admire you, resent you, but at least acknowledge you. Now she's treated like a ghost, and ghosts don't get second chances. She begins to ask herself whether Victor will stop once she's broken, or whether he will keep going until she's completely erased from business and society alike. That question creates a dangerous, volatile thought. If she is truly being driven into a corner, what will she do to survive? How far will she go to force the city to look at her again? By the time the full weight of Victor's campaign settles in, Phyllis understands the cruel brilliance of it. He doesn't need to destroy her with one final blow. He can make her destroy herself by pushing her into a choice that tears her apart. If she retreats, she loses her power and validates Victor's dominance. If she strikes back in a reckless way, she gives Victor the justification he needs to finish her publicly and permanently. And on the night Phyllis stares at her unanswered calls, the canceled meetings, the vanished invitations, and the widening distance in Daniel's eyes, she realizes something chilling. Victor may have been waiting for her next move from the beginning. Because if Phyllis makes one desperate mistake, he won't just end her career, he'll end her place in Genoa City altogether. Victor no longer treats what Phyllis and Kane did as a failed power play or a scrape that can be smoothed over with a quiet settlement. To him, it is a public slap to the Newman-Namian attack that damaged not only finances but the aura of invincibility he has spent a lifetime engineering through discipline, strategy, and ruthless control. The humiliation doesn't make Victor impulsive, it makes him precise. Instead of a simple act of retaliation, he turns anger into architecture. He understands that in Genoa City, a properly designed legal war doesn't just recover losses, it can dismantle a person layer by layer, stripping away money, credibility, and the right to stand upright in the social world. That is Victor's true objective, not merely to be repaid, but to reduce Phyllis Summers and Kane Ashby into a living warning. A visible consequence for anyone arrogant enough to believe technology, deception, and nerve can puncture the Newman empire and walk away untouched. Victor's decision arrives faster than Phyllis and Kane expect. Yet it carries none of the chaos of a temper tantrum. He mobilizes the best attorneys the way a general deploys troops quietly, decisively, with each call made like a blade being sharpened. The most feared names in high-stakes litigation form a wall of expertise around him, and their presence alone signals that this will not be negotiated away. Victor is not hiring lawyers to win a single case, he is building a machine designed to crush. He chooses charges that are both severe and expansive: Iberat, corporate sabotage, fraud, terms that carry weight in court and poison in public opinion. Every accusation is selected to do double damage, to lock Phyllis and Kane into legal peril, while simultaneously destroying their reputations, their finances, and their future access to business opportunities. When the lawsuit is officially filed, Genoa City tightens like a wire pulled to breaking point. The news spreads without anyone needing to sensationalize it, because Victor choosing to drag this into the open is, by itself, an earthquake. He rarely fights in full daylight unless he intends to leave no survivors. This time, he is not protecting a calm, controlled image behind closed doors. He wants the battle visible, the consequences witnessed, the humiliation unavoidable. His vow to ruin Phyllis and Kane financially and socially lands not as a threat, but as an announcement of an outcome he has already decided. Victor doesn't speak to frighten people, he speaks to inform them of what is coming. Phyllis and Kane are hit where they never truly prepared to be hit. They can handle backroom maneuvering, corporate pressure, reputation warfare, and calculated revenge. But a comprehensive legal war is different. It is exposure. It is the forcing of hidden motives and messy details into a record that cannot be spun away with confidence or charm. The shock is not just the speed of Victor's strike, but its scale. He isn't targeting one action, he's targeting the entire pattern of their survival. Phyllis feels herself dragged out of the arena where she usually excels, where she can shape the narrative, manipulate perception, turn chaos into power. In court, the story belongs to documents, timestamps, and evidence. And Victor intends to drown her in all three. Kane, who is used to negotiation and strategic brinkmanship, realizes that the law doesn't operate on daring alone. Here, a single overlooked detail can become the nail that seals a future shut. They scramble to assemble attorneys and evidence. But even that first step reveals how deeply Victor's influence has already spread. Lawyers don't only evaluate the case, they evaluate the social cost of standing against Newman. Meetings feel cautious, responses carefully worded, professionalism layered over unspoken fear. Phyllis recognizes it immediately because she can read hesitation like a language. Victor is not merely suing them, he is isolating them, even in the act of trying to survive. That is what rattles her the most. She cannot fight something she cannot prove. She cannot attack a shadow. She can only feel the doors closing. The hearings begin, and each appearance becomes a kind of suffocation. Phyllis walks into spaces where every glance feels like a verdict forming in real time, where she isn't merely a defendant but a symbol, a name attached to cold words like attack and fraud. The atmosphere grows thick, as if the room itself is waiting for the moment a truth drops hard enough to break the floor. Kane tries to hold the composure of a man who believes he can still control the outcome. But underneath that composure is the terror of being stripped bare. He understands what Victor is doing. The evidence isn't being presented simply to prove actions, but to prove intent, calculation, greed. The way they persuaded themselves that the end justified the means. More pieces surface exactly as Victor planned, fragment by fragment, each one small enough to feel survivable on its own, yet devastating when assembled into a full picture. Every new detail is another door slammed shut, another inch of breathing space taken away. Phyllis watches her reputation shift from controversial to toxic. And this time she cannot rebuild it through sheer force of personality. In a legal war, reputation doesn't die by rumor, it dies by record. It dies by evidence stated aloud in rooms, where the wrong sentence can echo into permanent consequence. Kane feels the same slow collapse in a different form. Every instinct he has to push back. An outmaneuver can be framed as stubbornness, even guilt. And Victor will use that framing to justify harsher punishment. The conflict spreads outward and the city starts to shake in widening circles. Other businesses become entangled through proximity, partnership, and fear. Relationships strain under the pressure of forced choice, stay close to Phyllis and Kane, and risk being dragged into the fallout or step away to preserve your own standing. Victor understands that total collapse doesn't wait for the final ruling. It begins the moment the city decides you are too dangerous to be associated with. He wants Genoa City to turn against them before any judge makes it official. Phyllis feels that betrayal and unanswered calls, canceled meetings, and the wary, guarded looks of people who once claimed loyalty. Kane feels it in the sudden coldness of partners, in contracts that become no longer a good fit, in the sense that every door is locking itself the moment he approaches. Victor uses every resource to ensure they face the heaviest consequences possible. And he doesn't bother disguising it as pure justice. It is punishment by design executed through money, influence, and relentless patience. Patience is what terrifies Phyllis most because she knows a hot temper can cool. But a patient campaign only ends when the target is ash. Kane sees it too and realizes, too late, that he misjudged the opponent. He thought he was playing a grand game. Victor is not playing to win a move, Victor is playing to eliminate every path forward. Inside the Newman orbit, that level of retaliation sparks tension. The family is not entirely unified about how far Victor should go, and those fractures add another layer of volatility. The disagreements may not explode publicly, but they exist as hairline cracks in a fortress Victor has always assumed was unbreakable. Some worry the legal war is too big and will create consequences even the Newmans can't control. Some fear the public cruelty will stain the family image. Others quietly question whether Victor is defending order or feeding a bottomless vendetta. The resistance doesn't soften him, it hardens him. If he allows Phyllis and Kane to escape, he believes he sends the one message he can't afford to send, that the Newman Empire can be wounded without an equal and opposite consequence. For Victor, that is the true defeat. As the case deepens, Phyllis and Kane begin to understand the threat is not only financial, it is existential. Phyllis watches her identity distort into a narrative she cannot control, and it triggers to competing instincts to fight harder and to run. She hates being forced into the posture of defense because in her mind she is always the survivor, the one who refuses to be cornered. Yet survival is becoming more expensive by the day, and the cost is no longer money alone, it is relationships, credibility, opportunity, and the basic dignity of being taken seriously. Kane faces the same abyss, a future where he carries a stain that never washes out, where every room he enters views him through suspicion, Victor moves closer to his goal with cold, grinding momentum. Each legal step locks into place like a gear in a machine, and every time the machine turns, another piece of Phyllis and Kane's lives is crushed smaller. The total collapse Victor wants does not need a single dramatic moment to arrive. It can come through a series of dark days where hope is eroded until only exhaustion remains. Phyllis is pushed into the one state she has always feared most, state, where she must admit some forces are larger than her will. And that recklessness does not always create freedom, sometimes it creates a cage. Kane feels his calculations turning worthless against an opponent willing to burn an entire field, just to guarantee his enemy has nothing left to harvest. And the most terrifying reality is that the worst danger may not even be the verdict. The true damage is what is happening in real time. Genoa City is relearning how to look at them, how to treat them, how to decide whether they are still allowed to exist inside the game at all. Just when Phyllis tries to convince herself there must be an escape route, a way to pivot, a weakness to exploit, she senses what Victor does better than anyone: attracts people with consequences. If she and Kane fight too hard, their resistance can be twisted into proof of guilt and arrogance. If they retreat, they confirm defeat and make Victor's final strike effortless. In that moment, Phyllis realizes she's being forced into a choice where every direction costs her something vital. And as the next hearing approaches, while Victor's list of evidence grows longer, sharper, and more final, Phyllis understands the most chilling possibility of all. Victor isn't only trying to win this lawsuit, he's trying to push her and Kane into one last desperate mistake, so he can walk into court with the perfect finishing blow and turn their downfall into something irreversible. And the moment she realizes that, she also realizes she is standing so close to the cliff that one step-pony impulsive move will give Victor exactly what he's been on our TV Spoilers channel. I always seek content inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting perspectives. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series. Waiting for